Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's The World This Week. The World This Week in partnership with The Daily Beast. We say hello to its Paris correspondent, Aaron Zaleski. Welcome back. Welcome back as well to Jude Grunstein of World Politics Review and Anne-Elisabeth Moutet of The Sunday Telegraph. I should add, of The Daily Telegraph as well.
Yes, we're now a 24/7 operation.
That's right. Gone are the days where a deadline was once a day. Here in France, the week began with residents of the northern port of Calais, truckers and farmers protesting what they see as an out-of-control situation, with 10,000 refugees squeezed into the jungle refugee camp and wreaking havoc as they try by hook or by crook to sneak aboard vehicles crossing the Channel to England. That demonstration was followed later in the week by the British immigration minister announcing plans to build a wall, a concrete wall, at the entrance, at the approach to the port itself. You see on this map here, with that part in blue where they would build the wall, and you see where the jungle camp is. Truckers are not happy, Anne-Elisabeth Moutet. They say it would have been much better because there already is a fence. They don't need to spend 2.7 million euros on a wall there. What they say is further down the approach highways where some of these refugees have been putting logs on the highway to stop trucks so people can climb aboard. There seems to be no good solution at this point.
There seems to be no good solution, and the situation is made more difficult by activists of the No Borders movement who come specially to push the migrants to do very showy actions that have no hope in hell of succeeding, especially going into the tunnels, which is dangerous, which has already killed some of them. But the idea is that you do this, people talk about it, somebody dies even better, and they're very cynical about this. And when you talk with the police who are on the spot, which I have, you realize that they are pushed into things that should sort of work on public opinion at large, but are not going to help them specifically to get in. The slowing down of the highway is, of course, understandable in the idea that that's a place where you actually can get onto a truck if you slow them down fast enough, in which case that would help you get across the channel, as opposed to those things into, getting the tunnels and not walking 40 kilometers where you can have either trains or trucks rolling over you. I don't think
now, when the immigration minister spoke, he didn't address some of the issues where it's true that Britain and France have this deal where they work together. Customs is on the French side, not on the British side. He didn't address, for instance, the 400 underage children inside the camp, who activists say most of whom could be relocated easily, have already family on the other side.
I was not in the head of the immigration minister in Britain, except that now is a very difficult political decision in Britain in the run-up to Brexit, with the fact that, in a sense, Theresa May has decided to slow down things so that they go into Brexit talks prepared. And I think she also wants to wait until the elections in France and Germany, show her who her interlocutors are going to be after that. So doing things that are going to be massively unpopular in Britain and thereby inflame public opinion anymore is not something that's going to happen. On the
Would
other
it
side,
inflame public opinion? No, it said 400 children.
400, yes, anything will at this stage, and it's a situation that's bad, but it's not something that you want to. The fact that they still get in, which is the narrative that the people who voted Brexit, many of them believe in. The other thing is that the French have got their part of responsibility in this, that they have decided early on, when Sangatte existed before the jungle in Calais.
This is a different camp.
The previous camp, the one that was destroyed, and it just moved the problem towards Calais and to this thing that became the jungle. And what they do really is, the point of that is, we want this place to have the bad reputation of a horrible place where you're badly treated and it's dangerous because fewer more of you will come, and it works. There's a bush telephone. And the idea. It's not pleasant. It's not nice, but it is a perfectly sort of cold-eyed decision taken by the French authorities. If this place has a reputation of being a hellhole, fewer people will go to it.
All right, and at the heart of all this is one of the guys who's running for president here in France. He was the one who signed that deal to put the customs on the French side of the border when he was interior minister. Nicolas Sarkozy is the one who was responsible for closing the Sangatte camp at the time. And now he'd like the border moved back to the English side.
Well, yeah, he's moving further and further to the right to prepare his candidacy within the Les Républicains, within the Republican Party. And that was his strategy in 2012 also, was to shift right to try and recuperate some of the votes for the National Front. I think in a lot of ways, we saw some signs of François Hollande not going too far to the right. But I think in terms of questions of identity and security, and immigration is sort of this issue that overlaps both of those domain. The rhetoric is shifting right. People between the terrorist threat, the sense of really an identity being under assault, and at risk of being transformed and changed irrevocably, there's this reaction. And that explains, for instance, some of the anger that we've seen in support of candidates like Donald Trump. It explains the rise of the National Front in some ways. I think the danger is that, as troubling as that is, we have a situation which is really a very nasty problem, because the situation in the destination countries is becoming unsustainable in terms of the reaction. But at the same time, the conditions in the countries that people are leaving from are so miserable that people continue to leave, even knowing, for instance, that the jungle is as awful as it is. It's better than the conditions, perhaps, that they face at home. So it's sort of like an unstoppable force and an immovable object. At this point, I think that it really pays. We would do well to understand and to try to empathize with. I think in terms of the public discourse, people tend to try to emphasize more with the refugees and the immigrants, because they have such a much more clearly their situation is more clearly heart-wrenching, let's put it. At the same time, I think we would do well to try to empathize and understand that sense of national identity or cultural identity being under attack, because until we understand it, if we just say that's illegitimate or you're wrong, that's just making the bed for the National Front and for center-right politicians like Sarkozy, who are moving further and further from the center. I don't know exactly what that entails, understanding it and responding to it, but just dismissing it out of hand is not the answer.
Yeah, it seems to boil down to a choice between empathizing with the citizens of Calais or empathizing with the refugees, but it shouldn't be that way.
No, it shouldn't be that way. I think in the current situation, everybody loses and everybody's at risk. We have, truck drivers who don't feel safe and travelers, and then the refugees who can only imagine the situation they fled to get there. And desperate people will do desperate things. And I think the wall is not the answer. I think it's just going to push the problem further inland. People are going to continue to try to cross. I think the money would have been better spent on fast-tracking the asylum processing applications or creating more legitimate housing for refugees. I don't think that this is the answer.
All right, Judah was mentioning there how people are in this campaign season blending together what is going on with the refugee crisis with all of those French jihadists who are returning from Syria and Iraq while posing sometimes as refugees. France traumatized by a string of attacks, and the steady drip continues. Last Sunday's discovery of a car loaded with gas canisters near Paris's Notre Dame Cathedral, leading to a string of arrests, including 3 women who, according to the Paris prosecutor, took their orders from Syria. The youngest seems to be the ringleader of the 3, a 19-year-old. Her name is Inès Madani, the daughter of the car's owner. She'd pledged allegiance to ISIS, had tried to go to Iraq and Syria. And the French are surprised, even stunned, to see that here it's now a female jihadist cell.
Well, there was already a woman involved in the Bataclan killings who was finally caught or killed in Brussels. This is not entirely new. This is and it's tapping into this sort of sense of exceptional destiny that you can find in practically any young person, and the ISIS recruiters tap into this very well. There are stories of those English girls who are now reported killed, who had been also seduced through the internet and made their way to Syria to marry, to become jihadi brides.
But here's the thing. This isn't like fair maidens led astray. This is, according to the latest information we're getting, these are women who are strong personalities in some cases and who are just as hardline as the men.
So were the girls who went to Syria. They absolutely wanted to wage jihad, and they were, some of them sent messages through an app to their parents saying that they were cruelly disappointed because they ended up to be maidens led astray, but they didn't start out to be. It's the sex equality, gender equality you find on that side. The problem is that they are homegrown, that it is easy for the recruiters to recruit them, and that it's not finished. It's going to last decades.
It's gonna last decades, and at the same time, there's Aaron Zaleski, these identity issues that France is still grappling with when it comes to how you handle people who are religious in some cases, and but not necessarily radicalized.
Right. Oh, there's the whole burkini brouhaha that was waging while I was away. Yeah, I think it's not necessarily it's largely young men who participate in these acts, but I think young women can be just as vulnerable. I think it's more a young person's problem. Young people who feel that they're not integrated into French society, that they're not accepted, and are just a bit lost. And I think those people are a lot of them, again, going back to the people involved in the Bataclan, these were young men who had no work, who had no direction, and it's people like that who
They
are...
had work.
Well,
had a
they
cafe.
were working at a bar, but I mean, I feel like they didn't feel this. They weren't religious. They weren't motivated by religion. They were motivated. They wanted to feel important, and I think that's
I
a
would
risk.
I would like to make a point and take the boy who killed Father Hamel in the church near Rouen. And this is somebody who was integrated in French society. This is somebody whose parents were still together. This is somebody whose mother was a teacher and therefore a civil servant. His elder sister was a surgeon, is a surgeon. And so he was completely integrated. And I think the whole notion that, they are apart from French society and they're not integrated is not the right tack to take. And if you think about, you have parked them into ghettos, those ghettos were exactly the same projects that were built in the 50s and 60s in France for the migrants, the previous generations of migrants, the Spaniards and the Portuguese, who were delighted to get normal housing with central heating and running water instead of the shanty towns, the bidonville in which they lived. And I think something else is sort of, keeping people aside. And I don't think it's French society. I think French society has been doing a great deal of good work, which by and large we just do not, there are...
But they feel this need to rebel against...
Well, some of them do. Thank God it's a minority.
Right.
Part of that
Well,
is age too. I mean, there were a
Right.
few older women in this group, but a lot of these people are in the 19 to
Right.
30 category of people searching for meaning and feeling like they're undervalued in terms of what they're capable of. I think that what you're saying is absolutely valid, and at the same time, I don't think that you can use one lens or one brush to describe them all. I think that in terms of the people who really who actually act on some of this stuff, it's very mysterious. I don't think we have identified what actually drives them to do that. I don't think it's necessarily marginalization or lack of economic opportunity. Even
Look at the 9/11.
Even some of them might. But let me just
yeah.
add. That doesn't, however, eliminate another huge problem that is facing French society and France, which is French Muslims who are not terrorists and they're not radicalized and they don't want to blow up Notre Dame or do anything like that. They just want to live their lives in France, often mostly as French people. And they want to do that in a way that is also consistent with their religion. And that is a very problematic issue right now for France because of the particular history of France in terms of French identity, the particular history of France in terms of its relationship to religion. France's version of secularism is you keep religion out of the public square. You don't flaunt your religion. You don't do it in public, and it doesn't impede on everyone else in the public place. And that is not the way women who wear veils for their religion live their religion. So it's not. There is something that's incompatible.
On that score, France's president distancing himself from his own prime minister this week, stating there is no need to write new laws to ban the burkini. François Hollande, who despite record unpopularity also took the opportunity to drop his first major hint that he'll be running for re-election next spring.
I will not let France's image and France's influence deteriorate over the coming months or years.
Or the coming years. Anne-Elisabeth Moutet, he wants to run for president.
He absolutely wants to run for president. There was an even
What are
sort
his
of clearer
chances?
sign.
What are his chances?
Oh, that he will run. In the way he controls the party, he might very well get to run.
That he can
Win, that's another question altogether. We had the clearest sign this week. We had the cover of Paris Match in which Julie Gaillet, the presidential girlfriend, is there. She's posing with an interesting décolletage open to the navel. I would say this is very Manuel Valls style. She's posing on her unmade bed with, and she's saying, "I am behind the president and I will help him." And the girlfriend is going to campaign for François Hollande. I don't know who in communications decided that this was such a good idea to launch a campaign, but that is the proof that he wants to run, and he thinks that a little bit of glitter on Paris Match is going to win people over. I'm not sure it's going to work.
All right. Aaron Zaleski?
I was just a bit astonished to find that out because he's been such an unpopular president that it was a bit of a shock. Oh, he's actually going to think about running again.
All right. Stranger things could happen than the president winning. Now, you know the world is changing fast when Apple, the world's richest company on the stock market, stages one of its ritual smartphone launches, only to see the iPhone 7's introduction of wireless headphones get upstaged by the makers of an augmented reality game. Yeah, present at the launch was a guy called Shigeru Miyamoto. He's the inventor of the Super Mario game, whose parent company, Nintendo, also happens to make Pokémon GO. And this is the interesting bit here is that we saw Apple's stock go down this week, and we saw when the announcement was made, Nintendo's stock go through the roof. Nintendo upstaged Apple. What does that tell you about?
Well, I think there was a certain point, to be a little technical, I think there was a certain point where people were really thinking more about platforms than content. And Apple had the best platform to people who are part of the Apple cult. And consistently they had good design, they had a product that pleased in terms of the platform. And now I think what we're seeing is that when you have tablets everywhere and you have cell phones everywhere, people are less and less attached to the platform and they're more interested in what's on it. It's also a testament to the different ways people are living. I just got back from vacation with my 15-year-old son, who knows more about these things than I do. And everywhere we went, we were in Japan at these beautiful temples and gardens and in the middle of these amazing Tokyo avenues. And he kept nudging me and saying, Pokémon GO. Went to someone and say, Pokémon GO. And I thought he was just messing with me. And I was like, no, it's not possible. He's like, at a certain point, he dragged me behind the person. And yeah, they were like playing Pokémon GO. And it was not just kids. It was people of all ages, of all backgrounds. I was more interested in what was actually in front of me, but people are living through this sort of screen-mediated reality.
That's super important. It's not just kids, Anita.
It's not just kids, but actually I think Pokémon GO is something very important, and I can understand why the stock of Nintendo went up. And it's the same company. I mean, it's the second time they have something exciting, because the contents actually also changes the platform, because what Pokémon GO does is Pokémon GO takes your reality and augments it. It adds the character in where you are, and it moves them when you move, and it moves things as the places move. And what it means is this is the way we're going to interact with computers in the next 10 years. We're going to no longer sit in front of screens. We're going to sort of have things appear on, whether it's glasses or a screen or something handheld or 3D, it doesn't matter. We are going to have the internet all around us, and it's going to interfere and connect with what we see. And I think people have felt how incredibly innovative this is, and that's the story of tomorrow.
Aaron
I think that's the
And be
story.
transformed by what we're doing. In other words, it will interact with us and we'll interact with
Yes.
it. And
Aaron Zaleski, on this. Last week, I'm driving down one of the ring roads around the Capitol, and I see this billboard sign that says, "Play or drive, you have to choose." Yes, people are playing Pokémon GO while they're at the wheel.
Oh, wow. See, I was just about to say anything that gets people out of the house and moving and away from their screens is a good thing, but now I retract that statement. If people are actually playing while they're driving, that's not... Yeah, there's been stories of people walking into wells and turning up on a classified military bases, and then
Inside the Auschwitz concentration camp.
someone in the States, I think, witnessed a mob-related killing because he went down this alley with chasing Pokemon. So it's good... Yes, except for when it isn't. And you should not play it while you're driving.
All right, don't play and drive. The final word there from Aaron Zaleski. Many thanks. I want to thank as well Anne-Elisabeth Poutet and Judah Grunstein. Stay with us, though. Our Media Watch segment is next. And we say hello to Diptyka Laurent.
Hi, François.
We're going to graduate from Pokémon GO to a ubiquitous social network, which is at the heart of a lot of controversy.
A very big controversy, in fact. What started out as a repost of a iconic war photograph has actually escalated into this whole debate around the internet and censorship. Now, it began earlier this week when a Norwegian writer, Tom Egeland, he posted on his Facebook account this photo that you see here that's actually on the Guardian's website. It's that iconic photo from 1972 of that young girl after a napalm bombing. Now, when he posted it, Facebook asked him to either pixelize the private parts of this little girl or to remove the photo. He refused, and as a result, his account was suspended for 24 hours. Now, the Norwegian Prime Minister has weighed into the debate, as well as other ministers, by reposting the photo in support of the writer. And their posts were also deleted by Facebook. So it's become this huge debate around where do you draw the lines between social media, the internet, and censorship.
What's your reaction to that, Anne-Elisabeth?
Oh, I think it's, basically Facebook understands only force, and I think the PM and his ministers should keep reposting the picture, and I think all of us should keep reposting the picture. I think it's a variation of algorithm, and people in charge of the algorithm who know nothing, have no history and no memory, and, just push it. It's the only way to
Yeah,
to do it.
is this prudish policy, or is it just that Facebook has this cost-effective algorithm that automatically deletes pictures that have nudity in
I
it?
think once they're dealing with individuals, including the prime minister of a sovereign nation, it's probably past the state where it's just algorithms. But yeah, I think it's a sort of tone-deaf policy where it has this, where Facebook has this idea that all nudity is the same, regardless of whether it's a pornographic photo or I think this photo might have even won the Pulitzer Prize, or it certainly is one of the iconic photos of the last 50 years or 100 years. You can't make the equivalence between the two, and so any sort of mature policy would understand that and take things into context. But then it becomes, it opens them up to abuse from people who are always playing to try and find the gray area of putting a provocative photo up and then trying to claim that it is valid. So I think they're just probably trying to save work by saying no nudity, nothing at all.
Diptyka?
Well, in response, Aftenpost, which is a Norwegian newspaper, has actually written a letter to Mark Zuckerberg saying, we will not comply with your requirement to remove the photo. And in this letter, it says that the Facebook founder has a responsibility as, I quote, the world's most powerful editor to make a distinction between what is child pornography and what is, a documentation of war. And they actually accuse him of limiting their scope for exercising editorial duties. So you see this debate actually take a whole new layer, and that layer is what role does Facebook have in the media, or is it replacing traditional media as a new voice piece for news and so forth? And we see that with the Facebook Live feature that they have, getting more people to sort of report, quote, quote, report from the ground. So,
Aaron Zaleski, is Facebook too powerful for its own good?
I think it could be. I think it seems like it's getting to this point. I mean, again, when it comes to whitewashing this powerful moment in history, I think, yeah, it needs to step back a bit.
All right. Well, Diptyque Laurent, many thanks. I want to thank our panel once again. Thank you for joining us here in The World This Week.